We're recording now, so we're good. And I will chop this up in the beginning. All right, sweet. Everybody ready?
Yes.
All right, cool. I will lead in. Mitz, I'm gonna go to you first, but then everybody feel free to, kind of jump in after Mitz kind of gives her points. I want this kind of be a free-flowing conversation, but I've chopped it up so you guys can discuss your specialties first. But I know you all have touched the educational background at various levels. So if, after somebody says some things and you kind of want to add in, don't, feel free to kind of jump in and not leave that person out there by themselves.
That's facts. That allows for more flow-free and conversation in as well.
Yeah, exactly. All right, you ready? I'm about to lead us in.
Yes.
All right. What's up, everybody? Brian Foster here, back with you. Another episode of In the Zones podcast. Thank you for joining us. As always, as we start these lately, I want to be sure to tell everybody to be safe. First and foremost, take care of you and yours. Love on you and your family. But we know we're taking this serious. We all are sheltering in place. And I hope everything is well with you and yours. And to those who have lost, have gotten sick, have lost loved ones, our sincere condolences, much love. We will get through this, people. We will get through this. But in the meantime, you all know I have 4 kids at various levels of education. I have 2 little ones, 5 and 8, that are here with me now on the daily. I'm trying to do work and educate. Not that I've come from a family of educators, so not that I ever disrespected what the education professional did. But if I ever could respect it more, I do now. Trying to keep a 5 and 8-year-old on task all day is, it's something. And then when my teenagers are here, one's in college and one's a sophomore, making sure they don't sleep till noon and see the PlayStation all day is a whole nother set of responsibilities. As my man Lionel already knows. So anyway, so in these times while you guys are trying to fill the shoes of our valued educators, we wanted to have a special episode where we discussed options for parents, the resources and tools they have that they might not know they have at their disposal, and some key ways just to, to keep you and yours, your little ones, your larger ones, keep them motivated and keep them focused on the task at hand. And I'll get 3 of some of the finest educators the city has to offer, the country has to offer. Forget the city, we're wide out here. So I want to introduce first Teron Ivy.
Hey, how you doing? Welcome. We appreciate you guys. I want to go ahead and reiterate those sentiments that Foster shared with you guys about being safe. And then also that educational spot. It's all fun and games until you have to do it, right? Everybody say, oh, I can teach, I can do it. Mm-hmm. This country has just officially been put on notice and recognized just how valuable educators are. But nonetheless, again, Teron Ivy been in the educational field since '97. And that's in a variety of positions that's related from classroom teacher to principal to superintendent to regional manager, meaning being over schools, and I've done it in both, really in the charter sector as well as the public sector, meaning for Chicago Public Schools. My current role as a high school principal within that charter world is something that I've come to revere a great deal. Sometimes they talk about a calling, right, and what it is we've been put out here to do. I tried to get out many times. I was like, look, I'm done with education. I'm out of here. Well, here we are 20 plus years later as a administrator, and then several years in the classroom as well. I'm still here, but I appreciate you putting this together for us, Foss, and really just giving our families the added support that they need. And I've always shared that actually parents are kids' first teachers. We're here to make that better and really have a partnership taking place.
Sweet, love the sentiments, brother. Then I also want to introduce Dr. Lionel Allen. How you doing, man? You on mute, brother?
My bad, brother. It's good to see everybody. Thank you for the invitation. I agree with Teron. It's a pleasure to be a part of a very important conversation at a time where we're starting to realize just how important schools are and how essential teachers are. I have been an educator my entire professional life. I matriculated from the classroom to administration very early in my career. So I've been working in an administrative capacity for about 13 years. And most recently, I joined the faculty at the University of Illinois at Chicago as a member of their Department of Education and Policy Studies. Well, much of my work now revolves around training and developing aspiring principals and providing leadership coaching to sitting principals and district level leaders. So again, thank you for having me. I appreciate you thinking enough of me to invite me to be a part of this very important conversation. I'm looking forward to chatting with and learning from my colleagues.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thanks for coming, brother. Do appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
And lastly, but certainly not least, we have Ms. Melissa Cruz. How are you, lady?
I'm great. Definitely missing my students, and I never thought that I would hear myself say that. I'm going through a little bit of withdrawal right now, not being able to see some of those faces. I've been, an educator here with CPS for 21 years. On the side, I have taught every grade between 1st and 8th grade, mostly concentrating in benchmark grades. And we know how important those are, for testing and needing to pass the test every year. In the last 5 years or so, I've specialized primarily in middle school and, just been working with Brunson School to transition us to a personalized learning or like a blended learning model of instruction. So I feel like, thank God we've been doing this for 5 years now, because just turning to the technology side of teaching, turning to the really differentiated side where we focus in on individual students is really important at this time. So I'm really glad to be able to just, share what I can with you and let you know, like, all of the amazing resources that are out there for, people that are at home trying to figure out what to do with your kids right now.
Thanks for coming. Do sincerely appreciate it. Well, let's start there. So what kind of sparked this thought I had, not only having, my kids in different schools and trying to figure out all the classrooms and the Zoom meetings and everything that's going on. A friend of mine, Dennis Silo, shout out DJ Focus, posted something yesterday or 2 days ago and was like, I think I'm good, but I'm really worried about resources for, those that might not be good. Like, I have multiple laptops, I have all these things already in place. How are the parents and the students that don't have these resources readily available to them? How are they coping? What's being provided to them? And folks started kind of chiming in on this post about all the, the things CPS were doing and giving Verizon free hotspots for internet access and so on and so forth. If everybody knew these things were happening, and I didn't want people to be in the dark on actually how dog CPS consistently we do. How great they kind of responded to this in a way, but also just so that we know what resources they have at their fingertips. So jumping on an elementary level, Mitch, you kind of touched on it. Talk to us about what's out there.
Well, you know what? First and foremost, your most important resource is to reach out to your child's teacher, because as a district, we are all, still working to create our learning plans. So the first resource, your school's website, your district website, that's going to have contact with all of your teachers at the school. So if you have multiple children at one school, you'll be able to find their teacher on that website and reach their, email address through there. And also what's important is when you go to that school's website, they're going to have links to all of the educational platforms that particular school uses, because it can be really confusing. Every CPS school is allowed to decide what educational platform they want to use. And examples are Khan Academy, iExcel, Study Island, Common. Those are all educational resources. We all link to them, and your school's website is going to be able to connect your child to the resources that their particular school uses. And be honest, there are so many resources, not only for teachers, but for parents, that it can be a little overwhelming. I'm looking at the list that the district sent us, and I'm like, there's so much here. So I just like, I don't want parents to feel overwhelmed. Just start with what's at your child's school and what they're doing already. And reach out to the teacher. We're all required and asked to provide daily office hours where we can meet with individual students. And we are also asked to hold full class meetings. So getting in touch with the teacher, don't let them tell you they don't have work. Don't let them tell you that, you know, they don't know how to log into Google Classroom or, you know, log into their email. It's nonsense. They're messing with you. They know, I mean, they do it in class every day, all the time. So start there and keep it simple, because your child's teacher is going to have a plan for them for reading, math, science, social studies. It's departmentalized. The science teacher is going to have a plan. Everyone's going to have a plan for your child. Yeah. If you are not able to access digitally, I'm pretty sure, I know CPS as a district has resource packets available in hard copy form, usually available at your network office or any of the schools that is a local site for kids to pick up materials. Mm-hmm. And also CPS schools for sure are passing out Chromebooks, working with families to make sure that everybody gets at least one laptop or Chromebook per family in their household. Yeah. So I say keep it simple. And start with the school, start with the teacher. That way you don't drive yourself crazy trying to wade through all of the million resources that there are out there.
And adding on to that, definitely at that high school level, you know, I started hitting the kids with that acronym about KISS, you know, about keep it simple. Mm-hmm. We had another word, but it's keep it simple students now, right? Being this. So just this week, as we came off of spring break, you know, and notice we hit that air quotes. I think we began spring break, 4 weeks ago now at this point, and it's still going. It just reminds me of that piece when the kids and the teachers always said, hey, man, I wish the weekend would never end. Well, welcome to it, right? So here we are now.
Never-ending weekend, right?
Never-ending weekend. But what we did do is we made sure that we got resources out to our high school students in the form of laptops, you know, made some very direct calls into families who we know who presented a challenge to getting online, you know, and there's a few things. And I think roughly just on Monday, we gave out about 70 laptops to students, to families that didn't have it, right? And doing some of that thing, you know, since we had started this and this official started that remote plan, we did have some of the kids, even at the high school level. So Cruz is not unique to elementary, but we had one of the kids told his parent, and that's because he was on punishment, he had to have his phone in order to do the Google Classroom, but the parent gave him a laptop already, right? And he was like, I can't get in Google Classroom because I don't have my phone. But the mom wound up sending me an email. I was like, no. And for him telling you that, give him an extra 2 weeks without his phone. And then I emailed him and told him, right? But what we did find ourselves doing, that left a void, sort of, right? Like now the parents, if we think about even when we were coming up in school, we didn't have this particular platform for it. So we started working and thinking about how we're going to educate our parents into getting this. And that'll be some of the things that we'll talk about, you know, today. But we start to kind of create workshops for them. And we, you know, everyone, we can send them what we refer to as a robocall, which gives you a robocall and that text message, right? Most of them right now have the, you know, their emails. So we're able to send out a e-blast to all of the parents and get them in and really bring the kid in and the parent. And before we allow them to leave with that laptop, we gave like a little one-pager. We also gave a quick website and things, and I'm gonna have to see if I can grab that, but it teaches the parent what Google Classroom is. So the better understanding that they have with that, the better off they, you know, better equipped they're able to help their student at that time. And really just get that nuance. Like, I think that this is gonna push everyone into a different kind of mentality as it relates to education and supporting your kids and things. I know we'll tap into those as well, but at that high school level, it's really a lot of the same things that you mentioned. You know, we are using Khan, we are using those different K-12, websites that are out there for them now. But just obviously depending on the maturation level, what year the kid is at that time will determine how much support that we need to give them. But I am one who, coming from an elementary background and high school, want to believe that, hey, we can't let those high schoolers off the hook just because they're older. Doesn't mean we stop supporting them, right?
Right.
Because they'll find themselves. Go ahead.
I have a daughter who's a junior this year, and it was supposed to be her PSAT year. So,
yes,
it's a big concern. And not to cut you off, Lionel, I wanted to mention something before it slips my mind. But in regard to resources, I really want to mention for parents who have a student who is an English language learner or has an IEP, which is an individualized education plan. I want to make sure that you know that you should contact your child's resource teacher, because at this time, if your child has an education plan or is an English language learner, there are particular accommodations that they should still be receiving. The classroom teacher may have a plan in place that's generalized for all students, but your child, either being an EL or having an IEP, is going to need additional assistance. So you should be sure to contact your child's resource teacher and find out what materials that they're going to be preparing. They'll have to work with the classroom teacher and, figure out how they can provide those accommodations to your child via these same platforms that you're using. So make sure that you're, reaching out to that, because it's really important that your child not sit at home and feel frustrated or unsuccessful because they're not receiving work at the instructional level that they're supposed to be receiving it.
Go ahead, Dr. Allen.
Well, I just wanted to jump in and say I agree with the both of you. There are a myriad resources available to families as they try to support and sustain academic progress for the remainder of the year. Brian, you began this conversation by talking about how your respect for educators has intensified throughout this experience. I think we're also seeing a brighter light shone on just the drastic social inequities and structural inequities that exist within our society. Because the fact of the matter is, no amount of Chromebooks that are being distributed to our families, no packets, no website links or virtual platforms are going to be able to address food insecurity, housing insecurity,
Yes.
that a lot of our children are being impacted by. And so I'm pushing, and what I hope we continue to do as part of this pandemic is we push not just the schools to do a better job of providing resources to educate our children, but forcing society at large, forcing the government at large to step up and provide the resources that our students need outside of school. The school is not the panacea, it's not going to solve all social ills. So how are we making sure that families are able to earn a living wage, and how are we making sure that students, basic human needs are being met? Because before we can talk anything about academic achievement, we got to make sure that students have food to eat, they have a place to sleep, they have clothing, and for so many of our students, they just don't have access to basic human needs. And so what I've been encouraging families to do is to set realistic expectations and make sure that those basic needs are being met first before they begin to stress themselves out about trying to complete an assignment, in Google Classroom or on Seesaw.
Right.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you brought that up, Doc, because we made a very concerted effort to make sure that we get a hold of our most vulnerable students that are out there, whether it's shelter or they're doubling up and things of that nature. We've actually taken upon ourselves to continue to provide them with an opportunity to get through the city through venture cards and things of that nature. We've kept that going. There are some institutions that have not done that, and also reminding them about the opportunity to go and collect to pick up food, from each of the schools, and it prepares them about 3 meals a day for it, because we know that this is one of those things, and we don't want to lose sight of that, because I think that also in doing it, it puts them further behind. And then the odds that's a greater obstacle that's out there for them right now. So we want to make sure we don't forget that. And sometimes folks do that, right? It's like, oh, everything is okay now. Well, no, it's not okay. Right. In fact, the schoolhouse itself was the very thing that kid could rely on, that the family could rely on, because they knew out of all the factors that they meet every day, they knew the one thing that was going to be consistent from 8 o'clock until 6 o'clock or 7 until 6, whatever it was going to be, was the school. You know, the teachers, the students, their colleagues, the resources and things that are there. So we definitely want to make sure that we are keeping a good focus on that and really pushing that message out. And I thank you for that, because what I am going to do is make sure my next robocall out, my next email and things, because the majority of them do still have access to some type of communication device, that I will, at least in my messages to them, reaffirm to them that we are still providing services, whether it's at the IEP level, you know, them getting their services from counselors, social workers, et cetera, or them coming and getting those cards reloaded so they can still get from shelter to shelter to get to work, you know, for those families that's not stopping, because everyone cannot work from home. There are folks that are still out there, as you very well know that.
Yeah, and so Lionel mentioned, you know, making sure that our kids' basic needs are met and that they're okay at home. And, you know, I know a lot of the focus has been on how to keep them engaged academically and, you know, keep them busy and out of your hair. And, you know, my best friend right now, she has a 5-year-old and an 11-year-old, and she's working from home. She's on meetings and having to make lunch and things like that. And so one of the really great things that, you know, in terms of like best practices, so we're just not strictly focusing on like getting the classwork done. Because let's be real, at this point, the difficulty is that students and parents alike right now have already gotten the memo that classwork not completed is not going to be held against their child. So that's like a big battle to fight, to try to get unmotivated kids to do work that they already know you can't hold against them. But in terms of just like being at home even, because if that's the case and you can't find motivation in that way, you know, thinking about some like best practices at home that can make your life easier, even if they're not necessarily real focused on academic work. Like, you know, being consistent with a bedtime and wake up schedule. My 17-year-old wants to sleep all day and play video games all night, right? So got to make sure that she's seeing the light of day sometimes and not staying up until 4 in the morning. One of the really great things that I even had to do for myself as someone who's used to having set times at work where I have classes and breaks, I created a daily schedule for myself at home, blocked all of my time. And we did the same thing for her daughters. We blocked their time so we know when we're working on math, reading, and when we're doing other things with our day. Which, if you're going to create a schedule, make sure that you know, block in time for things like get outside and run around for a little while, play for a while, have some creative time. Like in the middle of all that academic time, stop and say, right now you're just gonna like color or draw or do something that relaxes you. And also our school, we are very, very big on meditation and making sure we have some mindful moments. And it has made a big impact in our school from when we first implemented it. It's been really successful. Every morning and every afternoon, we start with a mindful moment. We start with a short 3-minute to 5-minute meditation and to just refocus everyone. So just having to slow down and really just go inside for a little while is helpful. So putting things like that into your schedule throughout the day can motivate them to want to complete schoolwork or focus back on academic stuff as well. And also, you know, not forgetting to just have fun. Like, we're out of school. We don't have to be in school. We can learn in our pajamas. So, you know, have a lot of games around. You don't have to spend a lot of money to find games to play with your kids, and just have fun together.
Let me ask this. These are all great points. So for the parent that you make the schedule, for the parent that, as Ivy said, everybody can't shelter, they can't work from home. They don't have the resources, access, or job that's allowable. Bills have to be paid, obviously. So I think that's a great point. Setting up a schedule, blocking time, so on and so forth. But if you're not home, you're at work, and your students are kind of left on their own, of course, things happen. What do you guys think of ways to not only keep on task and motivated, but reward the behavior of continuing their studies, even though they don't have a teacher in front of them or you in front of them, keep them on track?
Yeah, I mean, I think that requires it's probably even more important in that type of a situation that you have a schedule built out for your child, one that you build out in collaboration with them, so that they understand that it's important, even though that they're not going to a brick and mortar school, that there's a rhythm for learning that exists throughout their day that they can adhere to, and that it is built with some times for them to maybe engage in some independent learning and some exploration that doesn't require an adult to be in front of them. I mean, hopefully, if you are not in a position to be at home with your child, they are of age where they can take some initiative and, again, follow a schedule without you having to sit side by side with them. I know that there are situations where that's probably not the case, but I think coming up with an agreed upon schedule that's built in consultation with your child, so that you understand exactly what their experience is, what they are supposed to be trying to learn, meaning you've looked at their remote learning plans, you sat down with them, you set some goals, realistic goals, I think will increase the likelihood that even a student who may be showing a lack of motivation will be willing to engage for the sake of learning and not just for a grade.
Yeah. And just kind of hitting on that, I think Dr. Allen is tying in some good points with it, right? Like we know we have to keep them motivated in some way. And I'll say this, I believe it's what's the big celebrity piece? It's the All In Challenge. I believe now they were trying to feed, folks across the country right now. It's something you do some of those small things at home, right? I think that kids, they always look for positive affirmations from whomever it's going to be, whether, some adult, they look for that structure and things. So as a parent or as a caregiver, I think one of the things you do is making sure that you're praising not just a kid's ability, but also their efforts, because we know that kids struggle at different levels right now. So we're doing that, given that they aim to please, regardless. And then I'll tell you this, they all aim to please you, and however what it is that you reward them with. If you're rewarding negative behavior, guess what they're going to keep doing? That negative behavior and getting it going. If you're rewarding the positive behavior, then they're going to move toward that and continue on with those positive behaviors. So those things that you monitor will continue to be there for them. But I think some of the things in that situation like that, Brian, is that that parent and that kid definitely have to be organized in that way. Yeah. So that schedule is definitely
for sure
one to have there, making sure that they have those resources as well. So it's a piece of them tapping in, whether it's the laptop, whether it's the packet, whether it's the food, laying out their schedule. Hey, run your daily schedule. In high school, we operate on 7 periods coming in there. And I think Cruz brought a great point about that social time as well. And so we're going to miss some of that with it, because the school themselves are also that piece to get that social emotional learning, or what we often reference as, the SEL in there. And so kids will miss that. So as a parent, if you can put them out there, which is why I brought up the All In Challenge, create one for the house. Hey, this is what we're seeking to get right now. How are you going to get that buy-in from them? They can go and, do a nursing home. Maybe it's Books for Tots, that's out there right now, and kind of giving those projects that they'll own on themselves. Ask your kid, what is it something they care about? And, a lot of times, video games, sports, blah, 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 whatever it's going to be. Well, I think those are easy. Hey, here's your jar right now. You get this jar, we're going to fill it up with marbles. But as soon as outside opens up again, we're not on punishment anymore. We're going to make sure we get out here to that, White Sox game, or we're going to go out and get you a new video game in, or I'm going to take you out to do some of the STEM learning where they can do some programming. If you find those things, whatever it may be that they enjoy, you give them those small incentives. And as we know, it's on lockdown right now, so those incentives have to be broken up. Maybe coming up on a weekend, hey, you can sleep in later, you can stay up, You know, we've been hearing about the kids staying up to 2 a.m, but if that schedule is going, it is what it is, right? So they need those long-term incentives and those very short-term incentives so they can kind of see the immediate results of their work, and that adds for motivation for them.
Yeah, I'll add that I also think it's important to acknowledge the gravity of the situation. We are living during a pandemic. Like tens of thousands of people are dying. And you may have seen this floating around on social media. It's the working remote COVID-19 principles. And number one is you're not working from home. You're at home during a crisis trying to work, right? That's a very different characterization of our reality. And I think we have to extend that same thinking to our children. This isn't e-learning. Like e-learning platforms are created with the distinct purpose of learning from home, but not in this type of a situation. This is remote learning. We're forced, right, to be outside of our schools and trying to engage in active learning at home. So I think we need to recognize that and understand that our children are also grappling with this reality in their own ways, right? So the fact that they aren't able to see their teachers, for some students, that's tremendously traumatic, right? The teacher might be the only person in their lives that they can depend on. They don't get a chance to socialize with their friends in ways that they become accustomed to. So I think part of getting your children to engage actively in this learning process is to acknowledge their reality, validate it, be sensitive to their emotions, and then acknowledge we still have work to do. Right? I empathize with your situation, but I can't let you as a junior in high school have a wasted last third of the school year. Right, like there's work that we have to get done. There's things that we have to prepare for because there is a future that we're getting ready for. But I think right now, what I'm hearing a lot of, what makes me a little bit uncomfortable, is that everybody wants to act like nothing's happening. Like we're just gonna flip the script in 24 hours and act like everything is good.
Right.
And, there are people who are struggling with major anxiety. There are children who are struggling with major anxiety. And I think that has to be, as I said in my opening comments, that has to be at the forefront of our concern right now.
Well, a lot of anxiety and fear comes from being off of your regular schedule, not having that stability, like you said earlier, of being able to go to school and see your teacher and, interact the ways that you're used to interacting. And that's why, keeping a schedule is great. I think what's most important is just having that expectation that work must continue. Let's think about it. When your kids were going to school all day and you didn't get to be there and see what they were actually doing, you still would want to come home, check their homework, make sure they did it, check the grade book and see that they completed assignments and things like that. And so if you are a parent that doesn't get to be at home with them, it's the same idea. You come home, you have a list of things that they should have completed throughout the day. You're checking their homework, you're checking their assignments. But the idea is to maintain that expectation that this isn't time to hang around and do whatever you want. It's time to continue to focus on the work and focus on learning. Whether you get a grade for it or not, you are going to move on to the next grade level next year, and you still do need to be as prepared as we can be, under current circumstances.
Absolutely.
Hey, I want to ask a question real fast. All three of us have students that are in college. So I think a lot of what we talked about translates across the board from kindergarten to, med school. But let's talk about our collegiate scholars right now. It's a little bit different for them, especially if they're away, like at somebody's university in a dorm or in an apartment, and they've kind of had their own freedom and carte blanche. And now they're back at mom or dad's house, and it's a little different, right? Because they can't go anywhere. They can't see your friends. You can't go get a pizza. You can't go to movie.
Look, man, and I'm gonna tell you, you bring that up because I got both. My eldest is 23. She's in grad school. She's here now. I could turn the camera and let you wave at her at this moment, right? But then my youngest, a 19-year-old, he's still away at school, but he lives off campus, right? And so the oldest, she's in grad school, as I say, and so you talking about that sense of independence. You know, she's looking at me and I'm looking at her like, hey, I almost want to be like, get out, go home, do what you got to do, right?
Go back to your apartment.
Go back to your apartment, exactly. There are some pieces in there that have to, you know, get her motivated. But what I found myself doing with both of them, because even my youngest one, I noticed a change in him. He's very sociable. You know, he gets some things from his dad where he enjoys being in the classroom. And now that we tossed him and he's a sophomore, and this is with his, he's on scholarship as well. So, you know, he has to do some of these things in order to maintain his academic status. But it's become a bit of a challenge for him because he can't walk into that classroom. He can't go and walk and see a tutor. He just can't walk and go see that. It's on that scheduled component with the class. And I would think that he would be there because as an athlete, they're scheduled from 6 a.m., actually 4 a.m. until, you know, about 7. But that sense of accountability is not there for them right now.
Yeah.
So we had to have that talk about what it is. And so it kind of changed our communication style in that while I'm still pushing him to get there, I still need to let him have his independence because he has to develop into a responsible, you know, young man also as an adult. And at 19 years old, you know, they think they know everything, but we know that the world is just really starting. And the 23-year-old, she's gotten into it as well with supporting her younger brother and telling him, hey, these are some of the resources that you need. So it needs to be that complete familial presence that has to be there to be able to address those needs. And I know that you guys, you know, will continue to tap into that, but that organization, and it doesn't really change that much from the elementary all the way to the college side of it. They're just older, but they still look for some type of structure and support and communication. And they look for that positive affirmations on it as well. And mine look for being corrected on it, but it's about how I do it that's either going to encourage them or it's going to turn them off. And so we're not trying to create that adversarial relationship, not parental side, but just against education itself, because if it seems like work, then, you know, sometimes it makes them, you know, take a little backseat to doing it. So we got to kind of find those ways and still have that type of communication that's on there and asking the right kind of questions so that I can provide the right type of support for them.
You know, what I'm learning from a lot of my students, both who are some who are undergrads and others who are graduate level, are feelings of grief and loss. Mm-hmm. You know, imagine being a freshman, you know, on a college campus, away from home for the first time in your life. You're just now starting to develop a sense of self and identity, and then the rug sort of gets pulled from up under you, and you back at home, you know, like high school 2.0. Right. And so I know a lot of students are really struggling with that reality and what does this mean for them? And my heart aches for those students who were set to graduate this spring, you know, they might have been the first person in their family to graduate, and now that celebration has been taken from them. I think it's been tough for a lot of college students, but I think to Ron's point, which I think is an important one, and that is, even, you know, college students, whether they be undergrad or graduate level students, thrive off of routine and predictability. So as much as you know, as we can, you know, provide structures that help them understand what's coming next, what supports are in place, how do you leverage the teleconferencing capabilities that we have to continue to engage in the you know, the academic process, the more likely they are to be successful. My fear for some students is they come home from school because of this pandemic that they'll never go back to school.
Right.
Like this is such a shock to their soul, right? This is such a shock to their existence that they'll have a hard time sort of re-engaging, particularly for those students who are already vulnerable and sort of on the fence between, I don't know if I'm going back to school or not after this year. To sort of be forced back home is a bit concerning to me. But again, if we put the proper supports around them, you know, access to technology, access to tutoring, access to all of the resources that they would have on campus if they were still living in the dorm, I think that increases the likelihood of their success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I have to agree. My daughter's in her 3rd year right now, and, you know, she's doing her remote learning. She was looking forward to doing study abroad in Paris this year, and that got canceled.
Yeah, wow.
And so even like thinking back to her first year in college, you know, her emotional health, it was something we had to work on. We had to keep her from, you know, getting the blues and, you know, from being away from home and from just not having her regular routine, having to learn, you know, life on campus and all that. And I think that's important for them, you know, being at home and not having the same independence where we can to like monitor and check in on their emotional health and see how we can support them in that way. I know her first year at DePaul, she actually went to talk to the campus counseling office, you know, because she was just feeling really unmotivated and finding it, you know, hard to get up and go. So making sure that even if the school, well, first of all, if your child's school is still offering those resources, you know, in some way, even though I know they've refunded a lot of money to people for tuition.
I haven't seen any refunds.
Wait, who's getting refunds? What school is this?
What number shall I call?
Man, I just sent a check to last week. What's going on here?
Right, but a lot of stuff has not been refunded. They're not giving back a lot of those fees. And so, you know, if your student still has the ability to take advantage of some of those campus resources from home, we should definitely try to take advantage of that or try to link them up with stuff outside of there. You know, sure they're good, you know, mentally.
I think the best advice in that situation, Mitzi, I think your point is right on, and that's to really scour the school websites for the resources that are available. Every school now has a coronavirus COVID-19 you know, web page that can be accessed that will typically list all of the resources that could be accessed you know, remotely. And I think, you know, taking advantage of those resources, again, I think it increases the likelihood that students can maintain some semblance of normalcy, but also increases their chances of making it through this very tough and unpredictable year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So as educators and administrators and trainers and all the various roles you guys play and have played, we talked about teachers and staff being open and accessible during this time to the learners, to our students. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering, how much are people actually utilizing that and getting in contact with you? And if it's plentiful, great. And if it's not, how would you like people to kind of, you know, address that and start, you know, flooding your inbox, taking advantage of the office hours and everything else you're offering?
So let me do a quick little jump off on it and then go in. That's part of this, you know, remote learning plan, as they want to identify it as now, right? There is a distinct difference between the e-learning and remote plans now and the active guide days that were put in place for us. Like now in this remote learning plan, they're being held accountable, you know, to a certain extent. While things wouldn't necessarily impact them in a negative way, but at the high school level, according to the Illinois State Board of Education, what happens if a child does not engage in it, they can actually receive no credit for it. So one of the things that we made sure that we did at my district here is that from like 9 to 11 is that time when teachers are actively engaged with kids. You know, it's the Google Classroom, it's them asking questions, demonstrating lessons, et cetera, take a quick little break there, and then from 1 o'clock until 3, we have teachers now making those phone calls, making emails, and engaging kids that are not engaged for whatever reason.
That was going to be my next question. What happens when and if they're missing these scheduled times?
Right, and so that's part of their duties as a teacher. Like, you know, I've been so happy that we've been able to keep everyone employed there, and it's not free money. You know, you still have a duty as an educator to continue to educate our kids. And, you know, it changes time. I know we can, you know, get into discussion about how this pandemic will change education. It's the face of education itself. And we can tap in it, but, you know, they got to keep doing it, right? They have to do it. So it's part of them giving feedback to kids. providing them with different strategies to meet the needs that are out there, but they still need to get that human touch, that caring, that love that sometimes only a teacher can really provide. You know, educators, regardless of what level it is, they connect with students in ways that's unmatched. I mean, and that's with any industry, and sometimes with a parent, depending upon what kind of home that they're coming from, right? Yeah. So we don't want them to lose that, and we actually require them to reach out to kids via phone, email, and US mail. And we've actually had some teachers that said they'll go as far as doing home visits with them. Yeah, I didn't encourage that one per se because of what's going on, but it just shows to the dedication of educators that are out there, despite everything that's going on, they're still out there trying to do what's best for the students that we serve every day.
Yeah, and I think that's a big worry for a lot of us. Like, to me, the students that I haven't been able to get in contact with, you know, we have a running list at school so that if, you know, the phone number is out of, or they haven't responded by email, we're trying to put people on it. Our administrators, obviously, our school is a site for kids to come pick up food and technology and all of those things. So we just have a running list of anyone we haven't been able to reach so that we continue to try to find a way to get a hold of those families and reach out in some way. And it's unfortunate, but there are going to be some students we're not going to be able to get in contact with, or whose parents, you know, are not going to take advantage of the resources that are there. But the best we can do is just continue to have those available, continue to reach out, continue to try to, I mean, we have some families in our building where we'll just try to get a hold of the families that we know are the student's family, just whatever we can do to try to keep reaching out to those who might not have the resources to get a hold of us by phone or email or anything like that.
Yeah, get their peers in on it, you know, have the police come in and communicate to them, hey, go grab Johnny, bring them on up here and do what has to be done with that. So absolutely.
Right.
You, if you had to put a percentage on it, Mitz, in your class, you're in pretty consistent contact with 70%, 80%, 40%. What do you think?
At this point, I'm at about maybe 80%. That seems low to me. And I think it's because of the middle school grades, to be honest, because speaking to some of my colleagues in the lower grades, they have a higher percentage of students checking in for their meetings and responding via email. But, you know, when you get to like 7th, 8th grade, a lot of times, and this is unfortunate, but parents are kind of like looking to you to be the one to take care of the little brothers and sisters at home and, you know, give them lunch and keep them occupied because they have to be at work. And is focused on making sure that, you know, our middle grades and high school age students are focused on their own, you know, academics. So I feel like it could be more. But again, at my school, we've been, you know, we've been doing personalized learning. We've incorporated technology for a long time now. And so I feel like it's something that our students are accustomed to, is contacting us digitally.
Ron, what about you? Percentage-wise, you know, I'll say this, it really varied from class to class, and also where they fell, you know, from that 9th through 12th grade, right? So we're in a position to where we offer different courses like architecture, construction, and engineering as part of it. So some of those teachers, like in construction class, had seen some low production being put out by kids. And I talked to him last Monday, actually, and just to ask where he was with that. And he said his was at one point as low as like 40%. And I'm like, whoa, you know, that's crazy. So we got less than, we're not even in the halfway point with it. But one of the things he said he had found out was due to the technology side of it. So the resources were a barrier for him. So I'm actually looking forward to figuring out, to reviewing his engagement level at the end of this week, since we started this piece, you know, the remote planning started the 13th. And so I'm really expecting that to jump. And I did see a lot of those students that he mentioned, they actually came in and picked up those laptops. And I found some of them, they were trying to do it on their phone. You know, while we can do everything on here, it's very difficult to run Google Classroom on your phone.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what we're constantly trying to do is remove that barrier from them. We don't want to have any excuses. It's whatever it's take. I mean, we gave out the school's technology to say, hey, this is for you guys. Now you got to be responsible. You're not just going to get it, kick it down the street, you know, use it as a coaster or whatever. But giving them that sense of accountability is the thing that we continue to put out there with them. And so I'm looking for that number to increase drastically since we've been able to make some changes for them.
Yeah, I will say it didn't, when I initially sent out emails when we first went on break and, you know, uploaded assignments to Google Classroom, everybody was hiding out from me. Nobody wanted to say a peep. Oh, they were hiding out, I promise you. I was like, I know you got emails from me. And so it took a really concerted effort to call all the numbers that we had available for our students and, you know, call other family members and, you know, I had to tell a few other students, I know you're friends with so-and-so, so you need to let them know they need to check in with me. So it's this finding every avenue possible to try to reach people. But I saw a big surge in the amount of kids that were checking in once I started like taking the extra measures and even just calling repeatedly. Like I called, they said, okay, Johnny's going to be checking in, and they didn't. And then I call again. It's like, you know, stay on those parents, stay on whatever contact points you have for them.
Yeah.
Ron, what do you, on the collegiate level, are students reaching out like they normally do, or more or less?
It's funny. I just got a text message from a student who's who is concerned that she's not getting her money's worth because.
I hear you, girl.
Hey. Yeah, I'm not gonna pay you to fail me. What's wrong with you?
That's exactly right. She's a graduate level student. You know, because a lot of the work now has to be done independently. Students have to get together on Zoom in groups and work collectively on, you know, submitting certain projects and things of that nature. You know, she's kind of like, look, I'm paying to be taught. I'm paying to be instructed by, you know, a professor. Like, what is this about? So because tuition is involved, I think there's a heightened sense of urgency around, am I being paid? Am I receiving the services that I'm paying for? But I do think that there's concern about acquisition of knowledge and content, right? Like, you know, I'm going to school to major in this particular course of study because I want to be employed in this area. Am I learning everything that I need to learn to be able to compete once I'm out in the job market? And I think that's a very real concern and a real fear, right? Yeah. And so, you know, we're trying to be as accessible, much like, you know, my colleagues at the K-12 level, trying to be just as accessible as we were before. Again, using Zoom, using text messages and phone calls to remain connected with our students to help ease their concerns, you know, about navigating this, you know, uncharted territory that we're in.
Ron, you brought it up a second ago, so I want to be sure we circle back to it. Future of education. After we come out of this, we will come out of this, people. After we come out of this, be that 2 months or 2 years, how do you guys think this will affect how you educate?
Well, you know what? I hope that it continues on the trajectory that I have been specializing in for the last 4 or 5 years. Personalized learning. To me, you know, it's different not being in front of my students, but I feel like we've been preparing for this because we have learned to communicate digitally through our practice of personalized learning. We have learned how to find ways to motivate ourselves and others. We have learned how to be creative and incorporate fun projects and things that will help kids be interested in learning based on their own interests. And those are all things that, you know, we're being challenged to do at home right now. You know, to use technology to our advantage, to creative ways to get kids to do assignments and to have them put their hands on things, to have them be physical in some way. Like, those are all components of a good personalized learning program. And so I hope that when we go back to school, we realize how much we're able to communicate and do without physically being in front of each other and without sticking to really traditional class structures. Hopefully this will help people see that it's possible to get a lot done academically without and change things up drastically.
So, really hopping on that with it, I think what this has really done for kids, not only for kids and parents, but for educators as well, what it has done is force them to become students again.
Yes.
So I got this new learning that I have to do now. I'm not just going to stand in front of you and, pontificate or be the sage on the stage or the keeper of all knowledge. And I'm imparting this on you in said way. It teaches them new ways to engage the kids right now, right?
Right.
A lot of our teachers are not necessarily familiar with the Google Classroom. So for them to sit down and catch these quick one pages that's in here, do a quick Google Classroom for themselves on learning to operate Google Classroom or Zoom. We've been seeing a lot of the Zoom or TikToks that's been coming out about different things. They play a little song and it's, and they change up. Hey, that'd been pretty neat if I could have changed into my suit right then when I hit that. But what I'm saying with that, it's just fine. Those are ways to engage kids, right now, but it's also get the adults into that. I think that it is going to force us to remain to become educators become students as well. Remember a while back, and I don't even know what we're going to call it first. We always talked about this, the 21st century. Well, I think in this piece, we past that right now. It's like, what is it going to look like? Are we going to be able to create something? We got little holograms that's coming up to get that engagement with them. Who knows, at this point, but it's going to force educators to become creative in how it is they're doing, and I want to share two quick things that some of my teachers were doing. When they started with this educational side, they were doing, slideshows and things of that nature in the class, doing the PowerPoints. But now they have this, this Google slide, and some of them didn't really know how to do it. And one of the things that we will have to look at changing, I talked about teachers getting up there and just lecturing to kids. And there's a lot of times we get that on the collegiate side because we secured all this education and we keep pushing it, and we got a professor talking to you for 2 to 3 hours at a time, maybe even longer, depending upon how often you engage in that course. But my teachers, one of them created the Google Slides that have interactive links with it. They've embedded videos in it because now we're addressing the different ways that that students learn, right? They're sensory. We got some that are auditory. We got some that are visual. They create these different projects for them to do right now. And I think that's going to force educators and parents and students to begin to go down that field as relates to education itself. And for those kids who can get out there and still just read things, they got another teacher that created Google Docs, but those docs are interactive with them as well, where, it's real time. So if the kid is coming in, you can see it, take a quiz, it pops up, it shows you the classroom and a pie chart, bar graph, however you want to set it up for it. But what it does, I'm thinking that this will start to push us to get something that we as educators have been asking for all the time. Now, we're going to date ourselves. I know everybody in this chat right now remembers the Iowa test, right? Yeah. Sure you don't. Absolutely do. You got the Iowa test.
I used to crush the Iowa, boy.
Right. Hey, but when did that data come back? It came back so much further down. By the time we get there, it was stale data. Well, but now what we have the ability to do these different things that give us instantaneous data to be able to really manipulate lessons in a way that's going to be beneficial for kids, right away. We can make things become real life applicable to things that's happening out right now. Because I know I still hear kids now talking about, when am I going to use algebra? What am I going to do about the Pythagorean theorem? And I'm like, dude, come on, man. You mean to tell me you're not going to build a fence around your yard? When you get there, you're not going to, have these seeds come out? He's like, the kid told me, no, I'm just going to hire someone to do it. I said, well you're going to have to sense for that.
I think it's important, too, that we go beyond just looking at academic data.
Absolutely.
And their reading and math data. And this is where, having to examine a child's individual interests, we look at data about, what activities do they do outside of school? What is their background? What are their strengths that are not academic strengths? And take a look at what are their, are their own social emotional competencies, things that they're good at, things that you can leverage about their own social emotional growth that'll help them be successful academically. So, and that I think will give you a bigger picture of how we can, you know, continue to motivate kids, not just to learn math and reading, but just to learn anything that interests them, that will help them grow.
So on one hand, I'm very concerned about the future of education because, I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Public education worked for some children, but did not work for so many more children.
Right.
And that might not be the case for our children, you know, those of us that are participating in this conversation, but we know for so many students, public schools have actually been an impediment to their success. I feel like we are at a very pivotal point in the future of education, because either we continue to perpetuate these inequities that have turned schools essentially into sorting machines, where some students are on track to be doctors and lawyers and others are on track to not have careers, but rather work, you know, job after job after job and not be able to establish a quality life for themselves. Or we take advantage of this pandemic closure and think about how we can reimagine schools in the United States of America to make them institutions that serve all kids and serve all kids well, and give every kid a fighting chance to be successful and to try to achieve the quote unquote American dream. Now, it's not really about whether or not we know how to do that. It's about whether or not we have the will to do it. And so my concern is, do we have society-wide, do we have the will to make sure that we break down barriers to equity and that we empower all kids, whether they live in Homewood, Flossmoor, or whether they live on 63rd and Stewart and Inglewood. Like, do kids who live in those respective communities have the same opportunities to be successful? And we know right now they don't. And that's just being, you know, further intensified. The inequity is further intensified because of the fact that we're all forced to engage in remote learning.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, historically, you know, regardless of what it is, pandemics, they force humans to break with the past, right? And be able to imagine a new world that's been out there. And this COVID-19 piece is not much different from that. It's either, hey, at the end of the day, and part of that quote was going that I heard it just saying about us opening up that new gateway. We're gonna survive it. It's what we choose to do. It's what we choose to fight for. How much baggage are we going to bring with us? How much baggage are we willing to let go? You know, and it's going to be for the sake of others. And you're right, Doc. This isn't, you know, us in this chat right here. We have some different ideas, but I tell you this, me listening in on us today and kind of walking through this, it's giving me some new ideas and what I'm going to do with my own kids, you know, but most importantly, what I'm going to do with my students that I serve every day, and getting that message out to them. And it's actually helping mold my thinking right now on the type of professional development that I'm going to offer them. Because at the end of the day, we as administrators and colleagues, whether it's at the you know, elementary, high school, or collegiate level, we have a responsibility as educators to educate each other. And I always tell my staff, listen, I'm a pretty smart dude, but I'm not smarter than all of you. If I don't know the answer, I'm gonna come and ask you for it. I'm humble enough to say, hey, I don't know, but let's go find out. I don't think it's a problem out there that we cannot tackle as a whole, and we need to have more candid conversations and really realize that it's not all rose-colored glasses. The grass is not green on the other side. However you want to, you know, put it out there, whatever analogy you want to use. But I think we continue to change, not only by having conversations, but actually having the courage to fail. Because with every failure, is some new learning that takes place that's going to be for the betterment of society as a whole.
Yeah.
It's Ron, and I want to jump in that real quick. I think what you just said is super important and key, not only for educators in the educational world, but I wanted the parents to hear that. Like, don't be afraid to ask your kids things. Don't be, my had to teach me how to log into something 2 weeks ago. And there's no shame in saying, hey, little girl, how you getting that? Okay.
Absolutely.
don't, as parents, I think, we always feel like we should have all the answers and kind of constant resource. But in these times, I think we can lean on the kids a little bit too and empower them in that way. And the more we learn and can be a support system to them, the better. So I wanted to make sure parents heard that point as well.
For sure. I mean, to follow up on that, Brian, that's a really great way to motivate your child, because the more serious that you take them, the more serious they're going to take themselves. And really important thing in the classroom is, to give your students the authority to be able to speak on things and show their expertise in everything that they've been learning in school and the ways that they're proficient and the things that they're able to do. And so, parent, if we look to our child and look at them as an expert in technology and as an expert in the things that they've been learning in school, and let them show us what they're capable of doing, like, that's pretty motivating to feel like you can teach an adult or even your parents something that they didn't know, So that's a really great point that you bring up.
Sweet. Well, hey guys, we're touching on about an hour. We could probably do this for 3 hours. But we know everybody's got, dinners to make and kids to get fed. Thank all of you all for joining me on this. This was super important, super motivating. I hope that you guys out there have learned something. So in conclusion, again, hey, be safe. Be safe. Let's keep that education going. Not only for our students, but for ourselves as well. And we'll check you out in the next episode.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Together we can, together we will.
Yes, sir.
Make it happen.
Take care.
All right. I think we're still there. Okay.